In this class, we learned how to use Microsoft Project and Microsoft Visio, and now I'm using Adobe Express. So let me go ahead and walk you through what it is to go through a personal property homeowner's claim. This project simulates a real-world contents restoration claim following a water loss. Now, a contents restoration claim is when you deal with the personal property in somebody's home that has been affected by fire, flood, or mold damage. The easiest way to think about contents is if you took your house, flipped it upside down and shook it, anything that fell out would be considered property. So in a water loss would be considered anything from a pipe bursting in your home to a washer overflowing or a toilet overflow. Each one of those can go ahead and constitute a water loss. Depending on how severe it is, depends on if an entire house has to be emptied of their personal property or not. For my project, we have broken down each step into 4 parts. You have the inspection of the home. Now, the inspection of the home is going to go ahead and have a project manager go to the home, and they're going to confirm coverage, scope of work, and what needs to happen. Now, in our scenario, this insured has an insurance claim with a limit of $25,000. And we received the claim on April 22nd, and based on our project, we expect to be done by June 23rd, with an estimated total cost of $12,540. This is important to keep in mind because we always want to make sure that we are working within a homeowner's coverage. And even though they have a $25,000 coverage limit, and we are only at $12,540, that does not mean that they still have enough coverage to reimburse themselves for any of the total loss items. Total loss items are items deemed unsalvageable, and those items are reimbursable to the insured. The scope of my project. So we explained about how at first a project manager inspects the home, they build the work, and then they wait to confirm coverage with the adjuster. Once they have confirmed approval and scope of work with the adjuster, we then schedule the pack out with the insured. Next step is the pack out. The pack out is when we send a team to the home to evaluate the items on site. They then use a software program in order to input each item into it, and they label them as either cleanable, storage, restorable, or total loss, which once again means unsalvageable and reimbursable to the insured. Once they finish inventorying these items, they then package or dispose of them. If they're packaged, they are removed from the home and brought back to our warehouse for storage. Once the home is emptied, the items are considered in storage until repairs have been completed. During this storage time, we will clean the contents. This can be hard good cleaning or upholstery cleaning. We'll deal with restoration of furniture, or we will also assist the with filling out the age and value of their total loss to assist in that reimbursement process. All of these little things need to be completed before reconstruction has completed and the home is ready for delivery. Once that has been set, the delivery date, our team will then pull the items from storage, load them onto a truck, bring them back into a home, unwrap and reassemble any furniture, and unpackage and repopulate all the items from the boxes. Deliverables at this point would then include a certificate of satisfaction. This is a form stating that the work that we were hired to do has been completed in full. So once again, we're back down to that budget. As of right now, the main budget includes that $12,540. The inspection and project setup is only going to cost $30 for the software. Since the project manager, it's considered unbillable hours. The pack out is going to be the most expensive because this is going to be labor intensive for the items to be evaluated. So that is the general labor of the technicians on site, as well as the packing materials, boxes, paper, stretch wrap, as well as bubble wrap and such that needs to be done. Storage and cleaning. So the item when they're in storage, we will then complete the cleaning of those items, which means replacing any of the packing materials. It also means upholstery cleaning and those types of things as well. Not all items that are removed from a home need to be cleaned. And then finally, the delivery of the items. Once again, very labor intensive, but minimal materials are needed. Really just floor protection, maybe some cardboard to protect the walls if you're taking bulky items upstairs. So our work resources for this project include the project manager, who is responsible for the project from start to finish. Their hours are not billable hours on the project. Then you have the foreman. The foreman is the site manager. They are the ones responsible for the general laborers, and they are responsible for the job site and communicating to the project manager. Their hours are billable. The office staff member assists from the office with collecting paperwork, such as work authorizations via email or the certificate of satisfaction via email if the homeowner is unavailable. They also communicate with them via the office. And finally, you have our contents technicians. They are the general labor force and do most of the manual work. An example of the organizational chart for the contents department that I work for includes a director who is responsible for the entire department. Under him is a production manager. Neither one of those are billable. They supervise the entirety of the department. And then under them, you have the office coordinator and the assistant coordinator. Once again, not billable hours. And then the project manager with their team under them, foremen and technicians. So this is the hierarchy of what the normal setup is. Now, in this department, we only have one project manager, but we could have as many as 6 or 10 depending on the workload that's available. Next, we have material resources, such as packing material. So when you're dealing with boxes, you're taking into consideration the cost of the box, the paper, the tape, as well as the labels and the QR codes attached to them. Then when you are dealing with furniture, you are dealing with stretch wrap and furniture blankets in order to wrap and secure those items. Floor protection can be carpet or hardwood floor protection. We use 20-yard dumpsters or 15 yards in order to dispose of total loss once it's been documented. And the software that needs to be provided for each job. That software allows a technician to take their phone and photograph items and add a description and material cost to them. The evaluation of items on site is a very intensive process. And as you can see from this flow chart, there is a lot of different things to ask yourself. Briefly to go through it, they're going to evaluate each item for damage. They're going to confirm if the items need to be cleaned or if they show damage. If they do show damage, do they need to be cleaned or not? And if they do show damage, can they be restored or are they considered total loss? It then breaks it down deeper into how to document those items so that way they are handled in the appropriate manner. The evaluation is all completed on site before the items have been removed from the home. However, at times, sometimes we have to reevaluate based on if the cleaning has been effective or not. Our contents warehouse is set up with what we call vaults. Those vaults are 7 by 7 feet or 7 by 12 feet, roughly. And it depends on the items in storage. We use a high-low to pull out these vaults, which are assigned to customers. A customer can have just one vault, or they could have as many as 15 or 20. The large vaults are used for more bulky furniture like dining room tables and couches, while the smaller ones are for boxes and small pieces of furniture. As you can see, based on the conversations we've had, there's a lot of moving parts when you deal with a personal property claim. This is a large snap of how our Gantt chart looks from start to finish. You can see how small it is. Now we're going to break it down into sections. So the inspection portion is normally the quickest, depending on the emergency type of the loss as well as the adjuster responsiveness. Sometimes the inspection process can take under a day to complete because you know it's a covered claim and you need to move fast. Other times, when it's more difficult, like a fire loss and the site is still being held under for investigation, it could be as long as a month before we have our approvals. Once we do have approvals, however, then we can schedule the actual pack out. Pack out is that inventory evaluation and removal of all the items, which can take quite a bit of time. You do your best to do it really quick, but I have seen claims take as long as a month because you must individually itemize each item. When we are able to avoid that, we will bulk document in order to try to save on time. Now, once the pack out has been completed, that's when the storage of the items start. While items are in storage, there are a lot of little things that you have to make sure get completed before that home is ready for delivery, or then you are delaying the completion of the project. Once that home is ready for delivery, everything else should be complete. And now you are going to be prepping the items, loading them onto the truck, getting them into the home, and then working with the homeowner to assemble and stage the furniture and unpack each box and put it in its appropriate section. Once everything has been to the satisfaction of the insured, they will sign the certificate of completion. And that is the final form we need to state that we have completed all work that we have been requested to complete. When we are confirming insurance coverage, we have to wait for the adjuster to review our scope of work before we move forward. Now, we are using 2 e-days in this project. However, there are times when you can wait 1 to 2 months for approvals, or you can go ahead and get an adjuster that does not want to confirm or deny, so they are not responsible for the cost of the claim. We do our diligence to try to receive approvals in writing upfront in order to avoid our homeowners from coming out of pocket. With an insurance claim, if you don't have the insurance company's agreement, they are not on the hook to pay the cost. For this project, the insured has requested that we start the project on 5/5. There are many different constraints based on insurance availability and the contractor scheduling as well. In this project, the homeowner requested us to start on 5/5, so we must start on that day. Otherwise, we delay the entirety of the project. However, in our scenario, the homeowner is also only available to have a conversation on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Luckily for us, a customer does not need to be at the home for us to do the work on site. The critical path represents the tasks that need to stay on track in order to make sure that there are no delays on the project. So in this scenario, our critical path follows once the packout has been completed to make sure that we are on task and completed with the inventory and documentation of the items within the set amount of time. Now, this not only will cause delays in this project if we run too long, but it'll actually cause delays for our entire department. Many times in a restoration claim, you get so many jobs, like 10 jobs in 1 week, and you have to schedule them all accordingly. So any delay on one project causes delays on the next. You assisting the insured with filling out the total loss inventory. Now you're supposed to review this information before you schedule delivery. So making sure that you have that first contact with your insured is very important. Otherwise, the claim is completing, yet you are still spending time on a job that should be over. For contents cleaning, the cleaning must be completed before the items are ready for delivery. Otherwise, you have to justify billing for storage for additional time when there's no justification to do so because the items are ready for the home is ready for the items to be returned. review and prep file for completion. This is something that should happen as soon as you know the home has been completed. So you're making sure that you're not missing anything. There's nothing worse than getting on site and realizing that your team forgot an entire vault that needed to be loaded. Once the home is ready for contents to be brought back, we need to get that delivery done. Same thing with the pack back tasks. Once it's set, once the schedule is set, any divergence from that schedule has a domino effect that affects either that own claim or claims outside of it. I appreciate you coming through my presentation today. As I explained, this is a real world example of managing a restoration claim when you're dealing with someone's personal property. I have been working with Drymatic Restoration Services for almost 6 years now, and this is what we do for a living. It is definitely a whole lot of work, and it has been a pleasure to go ahead and break it down into bite-sized pieces. Hopefully, I'll be able to explain what we do easier to somebody with limited knowledge of my industry. So by using Microsoft Project and Visio, I was able to manage time, cost, and coordination, ensuring that our budget hit, as well as that our timeline was maintained. Thank you so much for your time today, and I hope everybody has a good rest of their day.